Making a superhero-themed Goosebumps book was a good idea. The problem is that I don't think the villain is scary. It's hard to be afraid of a villain who regularly gets defeated by a gazelle superhero. The book probably would have been better if the author took ideas from a 10 scariest supervillains list in order to make his own villain.
Argo Font Book Review, Argo Font Book Review.
Bradley Matthews, better known as Skipper, is a slightly chubby boy who collects comics. His favorite is the Masked Mutant, a supervillain who can change into anything solid. The Masked Mutant turns into a giant octopus to kill a sponge superhero. SpongeBob SquarePants, maybe? When the sponge slips out of his tentacles, the Masked Mutant gives up and goes back to his headquarters, a giant pink building shaped like a fire hydrant. You see why I don't think he's very scary? There are fake-out scares when Skipper's younger sister grabs his neck with cold hands, and when his father threatens to throw out all his comics. Skipper has a best friend named Wilson. Wilson spends all his time talking about rubber stamps. He's funny, but at the same time, I wish he had more to do than make stamp jokes. Wilson should have been Skipper's superhero sidekick. Skipper takes the bus into town. A girl named Libby Zax starts talking to him. She's cute, funny, and even invites Skipper to come over to her house. It sounds like she wants to be his girlfriend, but Skipper has no romantic interest in Libby because she likes Archie and Jughead comics. Yuck! As an Archie fan, I am offended by this. I'll have you know, some Jughead comics are hilarious. But Skipper is right that Betty and Veronica pretty much look the same. Skipper accidentally misses his bus stop. He is shocked when he sees the pink fire hydrant building from his comics. Is the Masked Mutant real? A week later, the building disappears. Skipper is confused until he reads a comic that explains the Masked Mutant hid his lair under a giant invisibility curtain. I was going to complain. It's unrealistic to have a curtain large enough to cover up a 40-story building. But then I remembered that invisibility curtains don't exist in real life. Skipper and Libby go to the empty lot. Sure enough, when they get past the invisibility curtain, the Masked Mutant's building appears in front of them. They explore the building. Skipper tries to take the elevator to the top, but that would make the book too short. So the elevator ignores him and takes the kids to the dark, dusty basement. Skipper finds an old printing press along with a bunch of artwork. He realizes this is where they make the Masked Mutant comic books. I was confused by this part. They make the comics from inside the comics? How was the first comic created then? Did it create itself? And what stops the Masked Mutant from going to his basement and rewriting the comics so he wins all the battles? Skipper is confused when he finds pictures of himself. Who drew them? How did they know what Skipper looks like when he's never been in this building before? Is there a time-traveling artist? These are good questions that won't get answered, because Libby finds the exit and makes Skipper leave. The next Masked Mutant comic shows Skipper sneaking into the pink building to save the Galloping Gazelle. Skipper imitates his comic book self. He finds the Galloping Gazelle tied up in a room. Skipper frees the gazelle. The gazelle says they have to stop the Masked Mutant, but the bottom two steps of the staircase are booby-trapped. Skipper has to jump over them. Skipper runs and jumps as high as he can, but he can't even get past the first step. Wow, Skipper, that's pretty bad. The gazelle says Skipper's lucky. The trap was turned off. Which makes me think the gazelle was just pranking Skipper the whole time. I mean, the gazelle has super speed. He could have easily carried Skipper over the trap if it was real. They enter the Masked Mutant's luxurious office, where the mutant tries to trick them by turning into a desk. The gazelle runs in circles around the masked mutant. The mutant trips the gazelle, who quickly gives up and runs away, leaving Skipper to be murdered. Some superhero! Skipper tries throwing a heavy object at the mutant, but he misses. Just as the mutant's about to kill Skipper, Libby enters the room with a weapon called the Molecule Melter. Skipper is sure she made that up off the top of her head, so he is shocked when the weapon actually works. Plot twist! Libby is really the masked mutant in disguise! The mutant reveals he purposely lured Skipper into the comic book world because he wanted to fight a new character for a change. Skipper realizes the only way to save himself is to make up some random comic book nonsense and pretend it's real. He says he's the colossal elastic boy, whose only weakness is sulfuric acid. The masked mutant turns into acid to kill him. Skipper gloats because the comic book rules say the masked mutant can only turn into solid objects. Acid is a liquid! That means the masked mutant is trapped as acid forever! That's actually a pretty smart trick. Good thinking, Skipper! In the twist ending, Skipper realizes he is still a comic book character and not a real person. The end. Post-book follow-up. This book was fun to read, but I wouldn't be surprised if Goosebumps fans dislike it. It's not a scary book. There is no suspense or danger until the ending. I did not like the ending, because it's incredibly long and drawn out. That last trip to the pink building is 42 pages long, or 35% of the book. I could not shake the feeling that the author was purposely stretching things out as long as possible. I soon got bored and couldn't wait for the story to end. Why didn't we get a fast-paced, action-packed ending, like in a comic book? The real Masked Mutant first appears on page 107 of 117. That is 10 pages before the end of the book. The book would be much improved if the main villain appeared sooner. It would also be improved if Wilson or Mitzi played a role in the story. As it is, Skipper's friend and sister are generic characters, totally unimportant. I would give them something to do and have that replace half of the finale. Another complaint I have is that Skipper talks to Libby 3 times about the pink building. She doesn't believe him, and he never shows her one of the comics to prove he's right. Why didn't he do that? I'm sorry for complaining so much. I thought this was a really fun book, just with an overly long and boring finale. I guess the Masked Mutant's real superpower is wasting time. Other than that, it's a decent Goosebumps book. I give Goosebumps number 25, Attack of the Mutant, 6 supervillains out of 10.